Okay. All right. We are back. I'm sorry for the delays on this. This is the public trust review. We're a little bit delayed due to some technical problems, but we are back here. This is Kirk Vartan and Tom Shanks. We are going to jump right in since we are behind schedule and get right into our topics today. The topics, just to remind us, the underpinnings of what public trust is care, loyalty, impartiality, and accountability. And we're going to dive right into the next slide here with Dr. Tom Shanks.
Okay, so the definition of public trust that we've been using is on the bottom of this screen. And it's based on, public trust comes from some fundamental principles that the council, actually every council, promises to the public. So it promises loyalty, which means it will only focus on serving the needs of that public. It is involved with care. It promises care, which is due diligence and stewardship, especially financial stewardship. And it promises impartiality, that it's going to treat everyone the same unless there's some particularly relevant ethical reason to treat them differently, like need, right? So that's what we promise. But today, what we're going to focus on is the last one, which is accountability. And when we're talking about accountability, if you look at this slide, most of us think that accountability is, okay, I'm going to beat you up now. I'm going to criticize you. I'm going to hold you responsible for everything that's gone on. You, as the receiver of the criticism, you blame other people, you get angry, and you never speak to the facts. That's not what accountability is. Accountability, especially for public servants, it's a positive process where you provide factual evidence that you fulfilled the promises you made going into this whole thing, right? So and it's positive. You're happy to do that. And you also promise to accept consequences if you fall over some obstacle, which all of us do. We all make mistakes. But it's what do you do when you have made the mistake?
And just to kind of clarify what accountability represents, this is the fourth pillar of the public trust element. It's taking responsibility and providing information about why and how you have done the job that you said you were going to do. That's really what accountability is for local government.
Yep.
Okay.
So has this council kept its promises? And we're still dealing with the civil grand jury report, which is listed down at the bottom of this screen. And what's important to understand, kind of tucked away in there, is a very significant action on the part of this council that raises all kinds of questions. So you have to understand it like this, right? The city manager made a complaint that the council members or a council member was directly giving orders to a city department head, which is against the law because they are only supposed to.
Right, it's called Councilmanic Interference. Is that the technical term?
Yep, that's what it's called. Okay. Councilmanic Interference, because the council is only supposed to deal directly with the city manager, who then deals with everybody else. And that's to keep the city staff away from the politics of what's going on at the council. So the former city manager made a complaint. An investigator from the outside was hired to investigate the complaint. And if true allegations, it may have violated the charter, but it also leads to a person being removed from office if they're found guilty of councilmanic interference. So it's a big deal. Okay, so what happened to that complaint? In August, the city put on the agenda a closed meeting under the exception of public employment appointment. That was the reason for the closed meeting. At that meeting, the city council block voted to stop the investigation that was made from the complaint. So they voted to stop the investigation of themselves. That's not accountability. It's not care. And it's not any of the other things that build public trust.
Just to be clear, so when we say went into close, it's closed session. That's usually happens at the beginning. They usually always see you start a council meeting and then the council goes into closed session to talk about very specific things fall into the closed session where the public is not allowed to see what's going on. If they're negotiating a lease or a land deal or somebody's salary or an employee like the city manager, the city attorney, are the two employees that the city council actually hires, correct?
Yes.
So in this particular case, they said, we're going to go into this meeting to talk about a public employment appointment, meaning maybe a city staff member like city manager, city attorney. Maybe they did talk about that, but what they also talked about was this investigation. They said, we're going to dismiss this investigation, stop it, voted to stop it. And what's critical here for me is if that's what they do, that's what they do. They're not supposed to do that if it's not on the agenda. But even if they did, it was not reported out by the city attorney or the acting city attorney at the end of closed session. Usually at the end of closed session, they say, no reportable action from closed session, or here's the action that was taken. That was not done, so the public had no idea that even took place. That to me is what I hear as the core issue that you're talking about from accountability.
Yeah, right. Because it's not accountability. It's stopping an investigation into yourself. And
so that seems, that's unfortunate.
It's egregious ethical behavior.
And this is on page 26 in the grand jury file.
It's reported there. Yep. Okay, go ahead.
So this is interesting. So the ethics, which all council members are supposed to take, the ethics class at AB 1234 actually demands, has a number of slides that go through and training. And I found it really interesting, this particular one, go beyond legal minimums. If you remember, look at that bottom line here on the slide. Remember, the law is the floor, not a ceiling for public service ethics. Sounds familiar. Thank you, Dr. Shanks. But the thing that really struck me here is what's circled here. Ask yourself whether if you're the council member, ask yourself whether your constituents will reasonably question your ability to put your personal interests and relationships aside and put theirs, the public's interest, first. You can decide. Go ahead. Sorry.
And that's if in this situation, your city attorney has told you that you don't have to recuse yourself, right? Because
correct
the thing, right? So,
right.
And that's
the first part of it, the minimum was if the city attorney says don't do it, full stop. Then your job is over. It's easy. Don't do it. But if the city attorney says, yeah, it's okay to, if your agency city attorney says you can do something, it's basically saying your test to yourself does not stop there. You have to actually do another check. And that is this check. Ask yourself, if you were to put yourself in the constituents' hands, would they think you're acting in the public's interest? You can decide to voluntarily abstain if you're concerned that your constituents would reasonably question whether you should be involved in the decision-making process. So it's not whether or not, to me, when I read that, it's not saying that, well, the attorney said it was okay, so I get a green light. That's not the level of
no, that's the minimal. That's the minimum expectation is the law.
And the law. But that is not what is expected. That is not the minimum expectation for a council member to actually to take into consideration. They need to take into consideration what is the optics of this? What could the public reasonably think that might be impacting my decision in something like that?
Yeah, we expect them to show the highest level of ethical behavior, because they're controlling our money and we've empowered them to do this. So they owe us an obligation of going beyond the law, meaning you fulfill the law and you go much further to build public trust.
Yeah, so the basic message here is back to the law is the floor, meaning just because something's legal doesn't mean it's ethical. And that's really where I think, and we use an example with Council Member Shahal saying, well, let's wait till the FPPC complaint comes back to see if we actually broke the law as the only measure to determine whether or not something should be done or not done, or to dictate somebody's actions. And what this is saying, at least to me, as kind of a layman in this, is yeah, even if the FPP says, yep, you know what, that was okay to do, that doesn't mean you should do it, because look at how much public scrutiny there has been over this, and removing yourself from that decision. Okay, last slide that we got going on here is consequences. This talks about the consequences of the behaviors that are going on. So the first thing that came up, go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead.
Well,
so you may have read about the letter that the chief of police in Santa Clara sent to the district attorney after the chief read the report. And he's asking the district attorney to begin an investigation. And he lays out what his the areas are where he wants an investigation. But you should get a hold of this letter. We'll put it on our website. It's an incredible letter. So it's a great letter, but it lays out the legal areas that are a problem for this council.
And then the next piece that came out was Mayor Gillmor's anti-corruption reform plan, right? So this is what the mayor is proposing to implement I think as soon as possible at the next council meeting on Tuesday. That they, these 6 points, the first one is to accept these findings, acknowledge them, accept them, and then act on them is really what this does. What else do you take away from this letter?
Well, one of the things I was going to say was that the next council meeting actually is tomorrow, and it's a special meeting, but it's been agendized. And the thing with this letter, this is what happens when you don't pay any attention to public trust, in the normal course of your day. You wind up having to deal with the police and the law, and you wind up having to respond to and incorporate programs and plans that slow you down, and they will slow you down. But that's what happens when you don't pay attention to this as it's going along, and when you try to meet the minimal standards, if even that. So what this means, go ahead, Kirk.
Well, no, just the last piece of this, which is, I think you alluded to already, is this week, tomorrow, the city council has a special meeting. I think it's off-site to talk about the new city manager, or interviewing a new city manager, or discussing a new city manager, and which is, and another one on Saturday. There's 2 meetings. There's one in the morning, and then there's an afternoon one on Saturday, which is closed session. So the public is not invited to attend these meetings. So it's, the council majority or voting bloc is actually evaluating whether or not they should hire a different city manager than what they have right now, given all of this stuff that's going on.
Yeah. And so this report from the civil grand jury is a major damaging report about public trust. So if they're going to go ahead with interviewing potential city managers, how can anyone trust their choice or their judgment right now? Is it still what the grand jury report is saying, that this is something somehow that the 49ers are involved with? All of this other stuff needs to be taken care of first. They have to begin to rebuild public trust before they do something like this, which is going to last beyond them, the appointment of the city manager. And Kirk, you had a good analogy of what this is like.
Yeah, so we put up the comment of it's like the house is on fire and the council is holding an open house. And like, what are we doing? Like, Rome is burning. Why aren't we focused on putting the fire out before we do anything else? Like, this is the top priority for the city that the city should be focused on. And just today, I attended a press conference. I live streamed it on my Facebook page that the recall, there's a recall effort underway right now for Councilmember Anthony Becker, Councilmember Jain, and Councilmember Kevin Park. They are recalling all three. There is an effort to recall all three of them. I don't know how successful that's going to be. I don't know what the efforts are going to be yet. I'll learn more, but like I said, I attended that just now because I was invited to attend, and I will, maybe we'll get some of them on our program, right, Tom? I mean, why not?
Yes. Well, yeah.
We're trying to create an open and balanced discussion here. It may not look like it's balanced because, unfortunately, a lot of the weight in the discussion is coming from one side. Don't consider this as a weighted one side or another, a partisan. It's like we're just trying to cast light on the dire situations that are happening in Santa Clara right now.
Right, and we're sticking to the facts as we understand them. And what we're seeing from the 49ers and the voting bloc is not facts. They're doing attacks.
They're attacking, and they haven't shared any data. Like they haven't countered. There were no changes to the draft. The city reported no changes to the content. They're just making accusations, but there's no data back. They're not backing up any of the challenges they're saying with any data. And that's really where I think everybody needs to look: is where are the facts? What's the data? What is being demonstrated? Okay, we are over time. Thank you, Tom. Sorry,
thank you very much
for the technical challenges we had today. We will work on those in the future, so you will not be delayed, and we apologize for that.
Have an ethical day.
Take care.